Hi, Lou and John from Bottled Up here.
Hiya.
This is a series of videos that we do very regularly if you're part of our community. We call them Heart to Heart. This is us sitting in our kitchen here in the UK, and we just sit and discuss subjects unscripted. Just we wanted it to be us talking normally to you.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, happy Thanksgiving to everyone in America.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yay.
We have a lot of Americans in our community, so happy Thanksgiving. We recognise some tremendous challenges around all of this for you in the States. We're having a tough time here, but you're having a really tough time there, and our hearts go out to you. We send you much love and our concern of what many of you are struggling with.
Yeah, it's a difficult time for America at the moment, between one thing and another. Certainly COVID is hitting you quite hard, and as it is here in the UK.
Yeah, and do remember we have a website alongside this called Beauty for Ashes. There's been a long tradition, hasn't there, between spirituality and alcohol?
Yeah, going back hundreds of years.
We, both of us, have been very impacted by the spiritual side of getting over what we've been through. So we go into it, because we respect and we want people of all faiths or none to come happily into Bottled Up and not feel that they're going to have any buttons pushed that they don't want. So we have put this in a separate website, but quite frankly, I think with what we're going through in the world as a pandemic, to know that there's somebody who can be there for you and cares for you, it is really important. So use that as a resource.
You'll find a link underneath this.
Yeah.
Anyway, my dear.
We've got to say
what are we going to talk about today? Come on.
All right. Well, surprisingly, we're going to talk about the expectation of celebrations.
Ooh.
And the disappointment of celebration.
Ooh, not so good.
Excuse me. And then we're going to talk about the fallout.
The fallout. Okay. So, three things.
Yeah.
The expectations. Hey, expectations is, you're looking at me very expectantly though, The expectations of celebrations, I think very often for many people the expectations are actually better than the celebrations themselves,
Yeah, I think
we kind of build ourselves up to this. Oh, it's going to be wonderful, it's going to be great, and there is a saying in certainly in psychology that the distance between the expectations and the reality is the measure of your disappointment.
Yeah, and we've got a daughter actually who always, she can make a birthday last about 5 weeks, bless her. But we're going to miss her this Christmas because she doesn't feel kind of that she can travel, and but she brings joy to that, isn't it? And so it can be absolutely lovely.
She brings a huge amount of joy to these things, and it kind of starts, the day after her previous birthday to the day after her next birthday, it's an all year round thing,
So there is a build up and expectation, preparation, and gift buying and everything. That's all part of this expectation. For drinkers, I think that magical thinking is not a good idea. And therefore I think pragmatic expectation in terms of a celebration, if you live with a drinker, is really important. We talk quite a lot on other videos about, practical things like negotiating. If you know that drink might be an issue, negotiate terms.
Yeah, it's always better to get the kind of ground rules right beforehand, and we're living in lockdown just now, and we're going to be like that for another 2 weeks, I think it is, before we actually get out of lockdown. But we're not even sure what it is we're going to come out of lockdown to, So we're looking at Christmas this year and thinking, what's it going to be like? Our expectations of Christmas this year are really very, very different because they're it's almost like a blank page at the moment. We were down in our little town yesterday, and Lou was in the bank and I was sort of wandering around, and I noticed that they were putting the tree up for Christmas, and they were putting all the decorations up for Christmas, you know, and I had a really ambivalent feeling about it, because on the one hand I thought, oh yeah, Christmas, way. On the other hand I thought, oh, what's it going to be like? You know?
What's the
Because
point?
it just seemed odd this year. But that's an aside.
But it isn't though, actually, because that is exactly what you feel when you're coming up to celebration, when you live with a drinker.
I'm sure it is.
You know, everyone's putting up all these kind of lights.
Yeah.
And you're thinking,
oh great, crap.
What's the point?
Yeah.
So we often have negative expectations, but use that as fuel. I always feel you can use these things as fuel.
Yeah.
So negotiating, I used to get my husband to, on days where my family were with me, to push his drinking back to the bit where I have to put up with it rather than children. And he was quite good with that. He would, sundown was when I kind of said, well, you know, practical things like try and get other people if you can. In UK, we've got a bubble now, and for Christmas we can have a bubble. And I have to say,
in case you don't know what it is, a bubble is a number of people who are allowed to mingle. Yeah.
So, you know, if you've got a drinker, but you can bring his mum and dad in, or even a neighbour or something, that does often put a natural boundary around. Not always, but often a boundary around.
My mother used to be, it curtailed my drinking, you know, because she sort of sat there and looked and, you know, and disapprovingly at me, and you know, so my drinking would sort of be reduced during that time. As soon as she walked away, that was a different matter altogether, you know, but yeah, she was my drinking dampener, so to speak.
So if you have got this kind of slightly, you know, negative expectation, use that as fuel to kind of say to yourself, okay, I know this might be difficult. How can we head this off at the pass? Is there anything we can do? Is there any negotiations? If there's any protection, is there anybody I can bring in that might make the situation more?
Unless this is your very first Christmas together, you know, with you and the drinker, then you will have lots of experience of what went on before.
Yeah.
And because of that, it makes it that wee bit easier to plan what actually happened last year. Where did it go wrong? What, you know, and try and negotiate with your drinker about that, you know. That's kind of the best way, you know, about, you know, how much they drink, about when they drink, you know, and sort of what actually happens surrounding the you know, the actual celebration itself. And if you can get that at the beginning, then it tends to make it a wee bit easier, Okay,
so moving on then to the second heading is the disappointment. Now, me and Steve were, it's like what they call Freudian slip there. My first husband was called Steve, but we were talking about this when we were discussing what to say this morning about the millennium. And the bigger the celebration, I think, often the greater the disappointment it triggers. And I was telling the kind of story that, you know, the kids were old enough to understand it was a really big deal. It was never going to happen again. And I pleaded with my first husband to not get drunk this time. I said, you know, it's really important that you're there and then always remember. And he fell asleep in his usual thing. He drank too much. And so he was fast asleep.
So he missed the millennium.
He completely missed the millennium. And the disappointment of that was absolutely huge. And I just want to stop here, and you may be, you know, listening to this, you probably are if you're, you know, doing Thanksgiving preparations, or maybe you'll listen to this at Christmas, just to say that disappointment you feel because everyone else is supposed to be having a good time and this was your moment for celebration, when it doesn't happen, is so deep and so hurtful. And I just want to stop, and if you're feeling that, just to say, I know how you feel and how lonely it is to be in that place. And we just want to just say, you this matters to us. This matters to us. And when I was talking to you, I actually cried. Just realised how
you did. I mean, it's nearly 21 years, but still that emotion is still there. But I think the emotion is still there because if it's a particularly sort of important date, the millennium, let's face it, and most people will remember where they were at the millennium. And so it kind of marks that occasion, and it almost indelibly stamps it in your head, I'm hopeless at dates, but I can remember where I was in that date, and there are certain other dates where I can say, yeah, I know exactly where I was during that time, because they are important. But the other thing I would say is that, and this is not to take away any from your pain, is that there's so many people around about Christmas have these great expectations about what's going to happen, and they ended up very, very disappointed, and they're not always about drinking, but many of them are.
The other one is anniversaries, because again, you've got this expectation that this will be an intimate moment, and the number of times that I remember being in restaurants and then getting into an altercation because there was too much drink, and then he'd start picking fights, and then going back and another anniversary ruined, and that terrible feeling of disappointment is really, really hard. And put this on speed dial if you can, if you're feeling that pain, and just listen that we do understand, we do care, it does matter, and it is our aspiration, prayer and hope that we can help you get to a point where these things stop happening. And that takes us to the third heading, which is celebration fallout.
The fallout, Well, again, I think it's the fallout of some of these things is that because you have expected so much from it, because it didn't meet that, then the sort of the angst, the anger, the disappointment, the sadness, whatever, tends to be even more magnified.
Yeah, so it won't surprise you to know that on the 2nd of January 2000, I woke up and thought, that's it, I'm done. I think if it hadn't been for the fact that my children used to beg me regularly not to leave my husband, that might have been the moment that I would have gone.
I think the number of people who on, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd of January or Boxing Day or whenever make the decision, that's it.
Yeah.
No more, I'm off or he's off or she's off,
or I'll never sit in the same room as my mother-in-law again, or that's
the number of people who make those decisions, I think, probably are enormous, But the problem is that, different kind of bubbles, this is our own bubble. When we're sitting here and we only see our own pain, we think that we're the only people that feel like that, because everybody's out there enjoying themselves. Everybody's out there having a fantastic time. It's only me in my household,
That's far, far from true.
Oh, it's far from the truth. But that doesn't really take away your pain in any way. But yeah, the number of people who are making these momentous decisions.
Now, first of all, if you need to go, and I'm talking about, we always say in anything that if you get to know our program, that if you are tolerating violence, sexual violence, physical violence, emotional violence is harder to decide at what point you put your foot down, and I think it depends on the culture that you're in as to where they set that. But if you are being put in under extreme pressure and abuse from your partner, then let this fallout from the celebration be the day that you begin to kind of say, that's it, I'm going to start planning to go. And maybe this is the time when you need to take that energy, certainly if that's happening in your life. Is there anything you want to say about that?
Yeah. Never, ever compromise your safety.
No.
Never, ever compromise the safety of your children or your family. But there's very few musts. In fact, I don't think there are any musts in bottled up, except that one.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that we come down all the time on. Do not compromise your safety, because, you shouldn't have to tolerate it. In any shape or form. and being drunk is no excuse whatsoever, you know. And if it's a regular thing, you know, then please just, you know, don't tolerate it.
In England, the best thing to do is maybe, if you can, is to get to your doctor. There's been a lot of violence in lockdown, and so actually if you go online, there are places where you can contact people. I'm sure that most countries have got their version of that. So take the time to reach out. It's really, really
If there's
important.
violence involved, there is, you know, you can phone the police, and there is a domestic violence, a sort of division, and they're quite skilled in handling these things.
And we know that there is a strong correlation between domestic violence and alcohol and drug addiction.
And unfortunately, during lockdown, it's increased.
Sadly,
it's increased because you're living in a pressure cooker at the moment, you know, and this has not helped at all.
No. So that is really, really, really important.
Yeah.
Now to get on now to people for whom that is not true. So first of all, I think we'd say about the fallout of celebration there's a lot of anger around, there's a lot of pain around, and the height of emotions is not a good place to make a good decision. So first of all, try and get away from this for a few days.
Just
so
one thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean to say that the decision isn't the right decision.
Okay, good
it's
point.
It's not the decision per se that we're talking about, it's the process of the decision we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's the right decision, but got to in the wrong one. You know, if it's like school and you go to show your work, and that's probably not the best way to do it, you know. But sometimes, you know, as they say, take a deep breath, count to 10, whatever. You know, maybe you need to take a couple of days to think this one through.
Now, we want to be said very clearly here on Bottled Up that if you need to go for you, we will support you every inch of the way.
Oh, absolutely. You got to go.
Absolutely. So if this is the fuel you need, the disappointment after a celebration to make that decision for you and your family that you should have made years ago, then we would absolutely encourage you to go.
We set up Bottled Up because that was the only advice that was given, you know, get out. We set it up to try and keep, you know, relationships together, but not at any cost.
No.
Definitely not at any cost. Sometimes it's the only way. You know, sometimes there isn't any hope otherwise, you know. And if you have been through this program and nothing's happening for you, and you're still, you know, frustrated, you're still angry, you're still sad, you're still frightened, you're still whatever, you know, then maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to go. On the other hand, you know, if it's just you know, you haven't been through the program, then maybe you give that a go. Because if you do have to leave at the end of it, again, as I say, it might not be the wrong decision, you know, it might be the right decision. But if you've been through the program at the end of it, then you can sort of walk away feeling, well, I did everything I could. And that's a good place to be, you know, because, you know, later when if you have regrets and thinking, oh, I wish I had done this, I wish I had done that, you know, then you wouldn't have that. No. You wouldn't have those regrets.
No, but actually, we also like to say this, you know, if you're really feeling disappointed, try this. And you know, we've done this program and we've had a lot of feedback.
Oh, absolutely,
In fact, you heard something the other day, didn't you?
Yeah.
You know, you've saved my marriage, and you know, so we do get good feedback, so we do know that it's workable.
Yeah, I get that on quite a regular basis. You know, you saved their marriage, you've done this. You know, it's changed my life. You know, so yeah, it works. We know it works.
Yeah. So if you're feeling disappointed after a celebration, here's hope. There are things you can do.
Yeah.
There are things, certainly. We start with you, because you're the secret weapon in this particular thing. Not to give you a lecture, but actually to say, okay, come on now, let's think about you and let's build you up, all right? And then we talk about what works and what doesn't, which is vital. Please make sure you know what you're doing is worth doing. And then we show you how to have interaction and to kind of influence your drinker. So if you're disappointed after a celebration, if you're just listening to this for the first time, take hope. This is free, the membership's free, all of it's free. Yeah. We're not going to hit you with anything that's going to cost you anything. The only thing we say, we have a thing called a chain of care. which is basically what we say is, if this is helping you, would you consider putting a bit of money towards somebody in 6 months' time in the same desperate situation as you?
It keeps it free for everybody, then, you know. But the thing is, you know, we have a program, but reading the program is not going to do any. It's like reading a manual about keeping fit. Unless you actually do it, you're not going to keep fit. Unless you actually do this program, it's not going to work for you.
Yeah, and don't panic. All the time we were writing this, I kept saying to John, they're going to be tired, they're going to be exhausted. So we've made this as easy as possible. It's not this big university course.
Yeah.
It's basic, simple steps that you can listen to, or, you know, as you go along, that, you know, stream something and then listen to it. So we've
Some
made
people
it
have
simple.
actually said when they were doing it, they enjoyed it. I know. Enjoyed it. I know medicine shouldn't be like that, but, you know, but yeah, it's enjoying it because it's about you.
Yeah.
You know, it's about you. It's about changing your life. It's about changing your life for the better. So.
And can I just say, we know when there's been a donation, but never have I heard John say, Marie of Canada has donated. We haven't got a clue. We don't care whether you give anything or not. We know when someone's donated, and we rejoice, but we never tie it with who's done this, who's done that. Because it's irrelevant to us. We don't care. If you need it free, take it free. If you give us a donation, brilliant.
Yeah,
if you don't, we
won't
love
get
you anyway.
Yeah, you won't get a sort of cut down version of the program if you don't donate. It's free.
Absolutely.
Take it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably mainly what we're going to cover. Oh, just the forum. If you're disappointed, get on the forum.
Yeah.
If you're going to rant, just say, I need to rant for a minute, because we don't want it just to be a place where everybody just just puts toxic stuff, and I know, you know, because that's not helpful to you managing your particular emotions. But certainly, if you're feeling disappointed and angry, just say, you know, just something like, I just need to rant, and then rant.
Yeah.
And we understand what's going on, and support each other. If you have someone really telling you about your pain and anger, support them. Come in, tell them, you know, how they feel, and, you know, let's be there for each other.
Yeah.
That's what the forum is for, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we all need a good rant, you know, but, you know, try and have some positive at the end of it, you know. But, yeah, I always say that, you know, the first step of healing, you know, if you've got a boil, is to lance the boil and get all the pus out of it. That's the rant, you know. But after that, you know, you need to sort of tend to it, you know. You don't just keep lancing the boil, you know.
And remember the basic rule of being with the drunk: never argue with the drunk. It never goes well.
No.
Get on the forum and rant. Don't rant at him, because you know, you might feel better for about 3 minutes, but the outcome of that, the big picture of that, is really good. So try to avoid that if you can.
And if you're not, excuse me, and if you're not a member, join. It's free. You know, just join. Again, there's a link down there to join us.
Yes, and it's basically it's us. And just, if you've never been here before, I've lived with a drinker for 29 years. He died of cancer kind of 10 years ago, 11 years ago. You were a very bad drug and alcohol, weren't you, alcoholic?
I was extremely accomplished drunk and alcoholic, you know. I'm sorry, I keep saying this. I was given 36 years ago. I was in a psychiatric hospital. I was told I had brain damage, liver damage, and I had 6 months to live if I continued to drink and take drugs. You know, since then I've been clean and sober.
Yeah,
you know?
and no sign of difficulty with his liver. I don't know about the brain damage, but
no, the jury's out on that one. Jury's out on that one on a regular basis.
I'm just kidding. Actually, he has a brilliant brain, and he ended up becoming the professor of drink and drugs at Pacey University. So he got his brain back. So that's why we're here. That's why we put the program together. That's why we're interested in you and want to help you. And this is who we are. So come and join us. We'd love to have you in our community. And I think we better stop now, otherwise
I think we should. So again, happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
For everybody in America and elsewhere.
Yeah, and very much love from us to you.
And if you're watching this at Christmas, Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.